Let's
unbalanced
hope
power
this one
dynamic.
doesn't
But that
erase
being said,
itself.
that could have 100% been portrayed
Like,
without
I'm gonna
Matthias being
erase
a
her
straight up
hair.
abusive PDF file coded psychopath. He is a super rich dude whose family employs her uncle and gives him a home. If she doesn't do what he wishes, she's at risk of getting her uncle billed.
This was the hair the model I was referencing had, but I found more prettier hair.
A very sensitive and compromising position.
I found hair that would fit
pushes her around and takes her dignity and
her face more.
He degrades her and treats
I
her
think it also
less
goes along
than
with the
an
horn too,
object.
so I'm gonna switch it up.
He wants to hurt her. I guarantee every reader understands the unbalanced power dynamic without the insane age difference and comparisons to Layla being a child. Look, it's kind of weird that the two meet when Layla's a kid and Matthias is an adult. It's really weird that throughout the book, Layla is infantilized by everyone. But put together, I end up having this really unsavory feeling that the author would much rather just be writing a book about a child and an adult entering a non-consenting relationship. And that feeling looms large over every minute of reading this novel. As it goes on, it just feels like Layla isn't a person anymore. She had so much personality and heart in the beginning of the story, but as time went on and Matthias was introduced, she just became empty. Just another female for Matthias to torture. One bad thing after another keeps happening to her. In the beginning, I was imagining myself as Layla, free and wild in a forest, drawing and writing what I saw, being loved by my newfound family. But after she was continuously bullied and preyed upon by Matthias, I didn't want to be reading anymore. Once a character I loved and could relate to just became a punching bag throughout the entire story.
I hate that too. I hate when they make the main characters punching bags. Like, why would I want?
Love with Matthias from the beginning. What a terrible.
Like, why would I want to read a story about someone getting? If I wanted to read a story about a woman being tortured, I'd go to the news. I'd read a history book. Like, I don't want to hear that.
Ending message to leave readers with is awful. She just wanted to be with Matthias. It may be a stupid choice. This might not be normal love even, or even a healthy one, but she didn't care anymore. This felt too good. To be in his arms like this, to be the wrong kind of love. She doesn't believe this love is wrong. She loved this man. She will only ever wish for this man by her side. And if that was the point, then maybe that would be something. As Layla's situation gets worse and worse, her life gets harder and harder to read. Your discomfort rises with hers, and you viscerally feel her pain and suffering as it happens. The book hurts to read because living her life hurts. It's pain, it's misery. This horrible man has inflicted so much on her for absolutely no reason. She, as well as we do, see no means of escape for this ultimately terrible situation she's in against her will. But no, we're told that she loves him. She has loved him since the very beginning and finds comfort in his presence. Layla has always loved Matthias, couldn't you tell? Victims of assault are exactly that, victims. And it's an absolute insult to have this story spend pages and pages depicting a very visceral sexual assault and then have the main character have a plot-induced lobotomy so we can have a romantic fairy tale ending. The villain of the story wins, and the novel doesn't have the self-awareness to know that its main romantic male lead is the villain. How could she have ever thought to resist him? Even with their lives threatened to be over now, she couldn't help but look and savor this image of his sweet eyes and warm touch. Her mind fought back with those heartless and affectionate moments they had had in the past, tangled in sheets and limbs wrapped around each other. She wanted to turn a blind eye to it, but it didn't work out. It had always been like this. She'd always been in love. It's odd. The comic version of the story has me torn a little bit. The whimsical art style paired with the really terrible and distressing story is an interesting contrast to show the difficulty of recognizing red flags in relationships you're in. In the movie Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile, the director Joe Berlinger specifically cast Zac Efron as Ted Bundy. His reasoning behind this was because so many women fell prey to Ted Bundy because he was hot. So they ignored red flags even after he was arrested and put to trial. People couldn't believe such a handsome person could do such heinous things. Casting a heartthrob like Zac Efron to be an evil person like Ted Bundy was to put viewers in the mindset of guessing if such a person could do such things, along with reminding viewers that pretty people can be evil too. That being said, it's hard to tell if the art contrasting the story was a purposeful choice, or if they accidentally or purposefully tried to make the story seem less sinister than it is, dressing it up in the trappings of any other romance webtoon. Like, sure, maybe they were setting up a thematic contrast, but it's equally, if not more likely, they just didn't know what they were making and cutesied it up. I read a mini synopsis of what happens in the story and read the necessary chapters just to have a basic idea of the ending, and it was actually vile. Matthias rapes Layla, which ends up with her getting pregnant. She leaves the mansion estate and an unrelated war breaks out. Matthias finds her and captures her, imprisoning her, and telling her he wants to kill her unborn child because Layla pays more attention to it than him. She begs him to release her, and when he does, the enemies attack. Layla, left alone, calls for someone to rescue her, and when no one comes, she wishes for Matthias to come because he's always been there for her. And like I've already mentioned, when he inevitably does, she does a complete 180 and tells him that she's loved him from the very beginning. All is forgiven because the author decided it was so. Stories like this can work, but not when the original novel doesn't seem to understand the magnitude of the actions Matthias has committed. In one of my favorite books, Speak by Laurie House Anderson, we follow the story of Melanie, who gets sexually assaulted at a party and calls the police, who break up said party. Unable to accurately describe what has happened to her to the police or any one of her friends, Melanie becomes ostracized by the school and she nearly gives up on speaking altogether. Until Melanie learns to work through her feelings through her art and express and acknowledge what happened to her. The difference between speak and cry, or better yet beg, is how the story treats the actions the victim then takes. Melanie is deeply distressed by what happened to her. She can't move forward or properly deal with what's happened to her. Layla in the story acts like his actions are terrible, but then when the story calls for it, she completely forgets every terrible act he had done to her and says she loved him from the very beginning. These stories work when actions are condemned, not glorified. This should have been advertised as a horror or psychological novel, not a drama romance. And this leads to one of the most distressing things about this comic. As I mentioned in the beginning, this was originally a novel on Yonder. Certain Yonder novels, if popular enough, get picked up by Webtoon and adapted into comics. The neighbor company owns both Yonder and Webtoon, so it is not a
It keeps going out of
difficult
focus.
task. So why is young female
I just
children?
stopped it,
Webtoon's user
so
base is
I could see if
mainly
it
made up
saved, and
of
it did
girls between
save,
the ages
so
of 14 to 24.
I guess I just can't.
And the comic is being labeled as being for young adults, which, like I said earlier, usually means ages 12 to 18, at least when you're talking about books or graphic novels. Webtoon's content age range lists it as appropriate for readers age 16 or older. Either definition feels way out of line for the actual content presented in Cry or Better Yet Beg. Webtoon has continuously been shown to advertise to children. Out of all of the novels they have access to, why on earth was this chosen? This wasn't a story some singular artist posted to Canvas themselves. It was a choice Webtoon made to have this story adapted. When the novel had already been fully finished, they looked at it in its entirety, knowing how it ended, and thought, yeah, let's put this one out there. You can't advertise smut porn and then turn around and act like it's the reader's fault it was put in front of them in the first place. Especially when Webtoon's own terms of service say that their adult comics may not contain sexual content. And again, let me make it absolutely clear, that is for their adult comics. If the comics for adults can't feature explicit sexual content, what the hell were the plans for adapting the story for young adults? You Google young adult books and you'll get stuff like Fahrenheit 451, Percy Jackson, Charlotte's Web, The Outsiders, Matilda, Huck Finn, Fault in Our Stars. Sure, it's a wide range of maturity levels and tones, but none of those books would feature a character being repeatedly tortured and sexually assaulted, and then ending up together as if nothing was wrong and nothing has happened in the first place. You really think a 12-year-old could tell the nuances of a bad relationship if the author of the novel couldn't? Even when visiting Yonder, if you remember it's the original origin of the story, you're warned by the App Store that the app is 17+. On top of that, the novel is at least self-aware enough to point out that the story contains depictions of sexual assault when visiting it on Yonder. But when you visit it on Webtoon, it only has a wording of child abuse. And I wouldn't get so heated if it weren't for the fact that some young girls are clearly reading this and being told that this treatment is okay. If you search Cry or Better Yet Beg on YouTube, you'll see video after video of cutesy little Matthias and Layla fan cams, glorifying a relationship built on sexual assault and mental torture. It's having a real, tangible, Googleable negative effect on how some readers perceive a healthy romantic relationship. Even if the artist Van J was planning on changing the story to be better and make the actions more believable for the pair, at this point we've diverted so far from the original source material that what was the point of adapting it in the first place? If the story was going to be changed and altered so much from the original source material, the artist should have just written their own story. I'm sorry I'm getting so heated, but people setting out explicitly sexual content towards kids is something I don't fuck around with. The heinous contents of this novel should have just been a warning for Webtoon not to adapt it. Did they even read the novel before thinking, yes, this is a good story?
I honestly probably just read the synopsis and was like, okay, that sounds like a winner.
For years, so we should just keep pushing out stories where females keep getting abused. I get that Webtoon can't moderate every single comic on their platform, but when they specifically call and pay for an adaptation to be made, I can't help but wonder why. Everything I've read, everything I've heard about this comic is awful. I don't care how the contents were going to be changed from the original source material. I care that the decision was made to basically put a rape novel on Webtoon, a site where statistically a young female user base resides. There's a whole argument to be made about where to place the blame when a story like this comes up. Should parents be more involved with what their kids are reading? Absolutely. Should Webtoon have put this content on their app where they are fully aware of the young demographic they have? No. You can't advertise your app to young audiences, mark the content as being for young adults, and then turn around and claim ignorance when you put smut on a website for kids. What would be a solution? Not putting smut porn on a site where a primary user base is kids. I really want to emphasize that Webtoon specifically had this made. It wasn't a lone artist who posted to Canvas. If Webtoon really wants to continue to make smut porn, they should put it on another site they own. The Naver Corporation owns a huge majority of story-based websites like Webtoon, Wattpad, Yonder. You're telling me a huge company can't make a site specifically intended for older audiences? They have a South Korean version of Webtoon, so it's not so far out of the question to make another site. Sex sells. It's not a matter of if they can get an audience, it's a matter of why they're mixing it in with other comics intended for younger audiences.
I think I like this better. It's giving very much The Last Unicorn.
I really dislike Cry or Better Yet Beg. The webtoon itself is still short with only 24 chapters, so the story's contents could change in the comic version. The art is absolutely stunning, and I wish the artist would have worked on literally any other adaptation. As far as where I'm ranking the comic, it is last on the list. I hate it. I feel awful having read it, and I wish I didn't know about the novel. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maddie Bites, and I'll see you in the next one.
I think it's because I don't know how to braid. Maybe if I knew how to braid, I'd be better at drawing braids. Is that me saying I should draw? I should learn how to braid? Because there ain't no fucking way. I don't even have long hair. I have short hair. I'm trying to grow my hair out. But I'm still not braiding. And my sisters won't do it all. I don't think I've done many piercings. I should look up face piercings or something. Please don't. I really hope it doesn't delete itself.